Everyone, and welcome to the Speak Your Own Book podcast. I'm just going to turn off our music here as we get into today's show. Welcome, dear listeners, to another episode of Speak Your Own Book, the podcast. I'm your host, Krys Copeland, and I'm thrilled to embark on today's journey of self-discovery and empowerment. In this episode, we'll dive into the world of Speak Your Own Book for Witch School students, the guide that we created to go with the Witch School course of the same name. It's a guide carefully crafted to help you manifest your inner wordsmith and craft your literary masterpiece. Whether you're a budding author or a dedicated practitioner of the craft, including Correllianism, in which in the second degree you have to create your own project, and many of you want to create books for that project. Or if you're simply someone who's curious about the art of writing, you're in for a treat today. We'll explore the various facets of this book, from its step-by-step guidance to its graphic organizers and its indispensable checklists. Along the way, we'll uncover the pro tips that are scattered like hidden treasures throughout its pages, and each one is designed to illuminate your path to writing success. But that's not all. At the end of our show for today, we'll immerse ourselves in a brainstorming meditation that promises to unlock the creative energies within you. It's the perfect blend of practical wisdom as well as magical interpretation, just like the book itself. So, dear listeners, find a quiet place, light a candle if you like, and prepare to join me on this adventure through Speak Your Own Book for Witch School students. And let's jump in today. I've noticed that there's a recent trend going around on TikTok and YouTube lives where people talk about what they're drinking during the video. I'm drinking tap water, so it's not very interesting, but it's healthy. Taking a look at the book cover itself, you'll notice that we did a very simplistic design for the cover, so that it could be used universally. We can put whatever logo of the sponsoring school or organization here. In this case, it's Witch School. And we also have the idea of, you're speaking your book because you're actually recording your voice during the process that we use. And then having that voice recording transcribed or transcribing it yourself. We give lots of tips on how to do that as well. So taking a look at the table of contents for the book, and you'll also note that I am one of the writers for this book, along with the rest of my team here at Speak Your Own Book. And Donald Lewis, Reverend Don, did our cover art for this, so you'll recognize his signature designs there. So the first part of the book is an introduction, which tells you why we created this book. It goes through the history of some of the books that we've created for Reverend Don and others in the Correllian tradition. And then we jump into the lessons. So there are 13 total lessons. I thought that would be a perfect number for us to use for this book. And they're organized by the steps that you go through as you're thinking about your book. So the first step is brainstorming. That's going to be focusing on developing the ideas that you have for writing. Creating a list of book ideas, of story ideas, of character ideas. And we have several different graphic organizers to assist with that as well. I'll flip over here so you can see some. At the back of each chapter, there are these excellent graphic organizers. You can see this one here is for your expertises. So you can list the talents and skills that you have here and organize those by activities, people, places, things, and events. And we've filled in with some examples you can see as well here with tarot at the front for activities, followed by people, Charles Leyland, places, Salem, crystals under things, and the burning times for events. These are just different examples, and included in this is also a blank version of these organizers in the appendix. And with this, you can also use the QR code at the back to access the editable fill-in forms on Google Drive. So all of that is available, not only through the book, but when you register for the course at whichschool.com. In fact, if you register for the course at Which School, you don't really need the book. All the material is presented there in the lessons. However, it is somewhat useful to have the book or the PDF version of the book for some students. So we've made that available through speakyourownbook.com. You can just go to our bookstore there and order it. In addition to the expertise organizer, you can also organize the interests that you have for this in a very similar looking graphic organizer. So maybe you're not an expert yet, but you have a lot of interest in, say, numerology, and you plan on taking a few courses on that before beginning an introductory book to numerology. That's perfectly fine. We have ones for things that you need to research or to look into further, and you can add that there. In addition, we've got a special organizer up front for how to plan for your memoir or memoirs. Now, a memoir is different from an autobiography in that an autobiography generally tells the whole story of a person's life from beginning to where you're at today. Whereas a memoir will focus on a specific time period in your life or a few different time periods that are connected together through an overarching theme. Let's say you want to write a memoir about your spiritual experiences in life. Then you may not include a lot of information about things that weren't spiritual experiences for you. Events that you went to, or your career, your secular career, unless somehow that intersects with your spirituality, of course. Following the memoir graphic organizer, there is, let me flip back over to that, my book closed here, what we call the expanded KWHLAQ research graphic organizer. So let's say you've picked out a topic, or you're ready to start gathering your data for the topic that you've chosen. You need a way to organize that information that you're gathering. Now, in the book, I do recommend using an electronic version of this if you're comfortable using computers, but of course, if you prefer paper, you can also use the paper version. You might recognize some of these letters from the KWL chart that you might have filled out in school for research projects in high school and elementary school, where you write down what you already know about a subject, what you want to know, that's the W, and then at the end, what you have learned about that topic. With the expanded, more adult version, more grown-up version of the KWL chart, we also have, besides the K and the W, the H, which is the how you will learn these things. Are you going to look them up in books? Are you going to talk to your mentor about them? Are you going to take some classes on whichschool.com so you can familiarize yourself with the topic that you want to write about? And then after the L, what did I learn? There are two follow-ups. First is the A. How are you going to apply what you've learned? This may continue with, let's go with the numerology one as the example. After you've taken all the courses on it, after you've learned some information, your next step might be to go out and practice what you've learned by creating numerology charts for your family members, your friends, colleagues, other pagans that you know. And so that way you can have that real world experience with applying what you've learned. And then finally, maybe after you've started that application of your knowledge, you come across more questions like, oh, wait, this is a weird chart reading and I don't understand how to do this or how these numbers are connected. Or, wow, this person has a really unique and interconnected set of numbers, and I think there may be a more powerful message behind that. So the Q in the KWHLAQ chart is for additional questions that remain. What questions do you still have after you've applied the knowledge that you've learned? So that we've left a section there for that as well. And I include also in the graphic organizer in this example, ones for tarot in particular, so you can take a look at that. I know it looks a bit blurry on the camera, but that's just because my camera is not a great one. I've had to switch to using a backup camera because the one I used to use is no longer functioning. So let's move on to our next graphic organizer. This is all still in the brainstorming and picking your topic section of lesson 1. There is the 5W1H research graphic organizer. I recommend using this in combination with the expanded KWL chart because this one will break down the information that you need to find. In the same way that journalists do when they're researching a story, they want to know the 5 W's and 1 H. They want to know who is involved or who is important to this topic or this event, what took place, the what question, what objects do you need, what's involved, and then where did it take place or where should it take place. If we're talking about numerology, maybe that means finding a comfortable place to work your numerology charts. It may be you might have a virtual office that you use to entertain your clients for the numerology sessions. For the next question, that is when did this event take place? If it's something you're recording historically, or if it's for your life, when did it happen? And then that follows up with why. Let's go back to when just for a second so I can touch on the numerology example. Maybe there are specific lucky days or numbers of days of the week or days in the month that are particularly auspicious for numerology work. You might want to mention those or research that and see if that's part of numerology or if other people have discovered that already. And then test it, of course, yourself. The why question is, why does it matter? Why is everything you're writing about matter? In the case of a memoir, this might be you're trying to teach someone else some life lessons that you have learned, and you want to pass those on to other people. So that's the why for a memoir sometimes. For numerology, that might be different. It might be to help people plan when to do certain events in their life so that it aligns with the energies of that particular date or that particular day to lead to the best success or the best happiness or the best outcome from that event. For the last question, which is the 1H, it's how. How is it done? What tools are needed for this? What is the procedure that takes place? All of those you can record in the how document. In this one, for an example, this was for tarot. So one of the hows was, how do you keep the deck clean? How do you spiritually cleanse it of negative energy? How do you store your deck? And how do you charge your deck? Do you use moonlight? Do you use a visual image? Do you use smoke and incense? And then this is another one for tarot. How do you ask a question? There might be similar ones with numerology. How do you do it? As in, do you need a calculator? Do you need a number chart? Do you need different correspondences for that? And then what's the step-by-step process that you go through for creating someone's unique numerology chart? What's the process for creating a relationship numerology chart to compare two different charts together? So that's another one for the how. In addition to that graphic organizer, let's see. Those are the graphic organizers under brainstorming. And so that's what I wanted to cover today for the brainstorming topic. In addition, every chapter starts with a meditation just to set your spiritual self up for the work that you are about to do. If people who might not be spiritual, maybe you consider this like setting an intention to or planning to do a thing. And in meditation, whether you're a spiritual person or you're not a spiritual person, has been found to be quite beneficial to setting your purpose for your activity, and to get your mind focused on it, ready to work. So I do recommend that even if you're not personally spiritual, try meditation. You'll find that it has a lot of benefits, regardless of your spiritual choices or your spiritual beliefs. In addition to the meditations that are in the beginning of the book, we then walk you through all of the tools that we have available, as well as the steps for brainstorming. And of course, if you have taken any kind of writing classes in high school or in elementary school, then you'll probably remember the brainstorming portion of writing, where you just throw out a bunch of ideas on paper. Maybe you do free writing to get those ideas out, where you just write whatever comes into your mind and you put it down on paper. Maybe you're working with a writing coach like myself. And the writing coach is also providing more ideas or helping you think more critically about the ideas that you have. And then we also walk you through how to do real research, good research. Not just watching TikTok videos, but really digging into some high level, high quality sources, books, websites, and other sources of authentic information. And we show you how to record the information as you go, so that you're able to use it later during the writing process itself. Now, while we won't get into the rest of those lessons today, I do want to just touch on what the rest of the lessons are before we conclude with our brainstorm for today. So after brainstorming, you really want to think about sales and marketing after you've picked your topic. And the reason I have sales and marketing so close after brainstorming is because you want to start developing that plan for how to get your message out, how to get your product out, how to get your book out and into the hands of people who need it. So we'll walk you through things like who is your target audience? Let's really get a clear visual image, a clear representation, a clear character profile, if you will, of the type of person that could benefit from reading your book. And then we also talk about, what your financial goals are. Are you wanting to just recoup the costs that you've put into it and maybe make a bit extra? Or do you have specific revenue targets that you want to reach in certain times, by specific times? In addition to sales and marketing, which you do want to think about right away, it's also lesson 11 in this book, because after you are, or as you are preparing to publish your book, and after you publish your book, there needs to be more thought put into that sales and marketing. You're growing your readership while you're writing your book by publishing little bitty pieces of it as you go. And we talk about that in the sales and marketing chapter in lesson 2. But then we further talk about that in lesson 11, so that you can find podcasts to go on, find people to do book reviews for you, and find other ways to market your book at either little cost or no cost. We do try to make sure that all the suggestions we give here are ones that anyone can do, regardless of the budget that you have in place. After sales and marketing, you want to start outlining your book. And this means outlining your whole book, chapter by chapter. And it can just be, one little line or one little sentence about what needs to be put in that chapter. That's perfectly fine. We walk you through how to do that and how much information is necessary for that step of outlining. And then we jump into the next chapter, lesson 4, which is outlining your first chapter. Now, outlining your first chapter doesn't always mean you're outlining the first chapter of the book. You may want to start with the last chapter of the book, and you know exactly how you want it to end, but you'll fill in the rest of the pieces as you go along. This is where it's really helpful to have a brainstorming session with a writing coach at Speak Your Own Book. Now, these brainstorming sessions are longer than our free consultations, so we do charge for them because there is a lot more time and effort put into it by our staff. But you can check out the pricing for that on our website at speakyourownbook.com. And of course, I do recommend jumping in and starting with the free consultation first before moving on to purchasing any other services with us, because you may, with the plan that we provide during the free consultation, be able to go on and finish the book on your own without any additional help. So definitely jump in for that free consultation if nothing else. In addition to outlining the chapters of the books, then once you finish that outline and you have, written down some notes about what you want to say on each topic, then it's time to actually speak your book. And so lesson 5 is entitled the same as the book, Speak Your Own Book. And we walk you through the process of selecting a video chat service. My favorite is Zoom for this, but you can also use Google Hangouts or Teams or Skype. There are quite a few available for it. And when you're speaking your book, you're basically just talking through it. You're saying, okay, I want the font to be serif or sans serif, and I want chapter headings to be centered, but all subheadings to be left aligned. You'll start out by just saying, how do I want this book to visually look? You might describe images or figures that need to be added to the book at certain points as you're speaking. And then dive into the actual subject matter that you're talking about for that particular chapter. And talk about it as much as you can. And just try to talk at length about it. For each chapter, I recommend being able to talk about 10 to 20 minutes per chapter through while you're recording. You can talk to somebody like a writing coach or a friend who's helping you with the book, and maybe get some of their feedback, or they can say, oh wait, I didn't understand what you meant by this. Can you go back and explain it in more detail? Having someone there to kind of stop you and check you for continuity, for clarity, that can be really invaluable. But if you don't have it, you can also just do that by yourself and record yourself. I've done this a lot myself. In fact, for this book, I did it. Just recording myself and then going into the next step, which is the next lesson, which is called From Speaking to Writing. And during this section, we teach you basically how to be a beginner transcriber. We teach you what equipment you need to transcribe the audio that you've created for your book. And we basically recommend that you type what you hear, but try to clean it up a bit to make it look more like a book as you go. So leave out your ums, your uhs, leave out your mistakes. If you start a sentence and then you back up and restart that sentence, only type it as one clean line. So we give you those recommendations. That makes editing and proofreading and revising later on much easier. After you've created your rough transcript, or now it's a manuscript for your book, you're going to revise it. And that's lesson 7. We call it Taking Up Arms. And each part of that arms stands for a different part of revision. So I'll flip over to that really quickly here. And we'll discuss each of those and what they involve. Let's see. The book itself is quite long. It's almost 200 pages, or maybe just a bit over 200 pages. So let's jump into revision. Like I said, we called this Taking Up Arms. ARMS is an acronym that we use for what steps to do during revision. Now, this is different from editing. Editing is cups. We'll get to cups in a second, but we're going to start with arms in revising. This starts with adding things that you've left out. Let's say you read through it and you realize, oh, I skipped a step on how to add up the numbers for a numerology report. I need to go back and add that in. So that's the adding part. You might also see that as you were speaking, you left out a word while you were speaking that was important for the context of that sentence. Or you might notice that you said the same word a lot. and you want to change out that word for another one. So or you might find that there are words or parts of it that you kind of rambled on, and you didn't really need that for the reader to understand what you mean. So maybe that part can be removed, which is the R part of that. And then you might need to move some things around. Let's say you were walking someone through how to do that numerology chart, and you mixed up steps 2 and 3. You flip those around. Or you realize, oh, I needed to back up and say this sooner, and instead I jumped in and said it later. So move things around with the M in arms. And then finally, substitute. So this is getting to, let's say you overuse the word like. Oh, I like this number, or I love this number. Well, like and love can be overused words, and there are great tools for finding new words that mean the same thing as like and love. It's called thesaurus.com. It's like saurus, like a dinosaur, and the at the beginning, thesaurus.com. And you can type in any word, and it will give you a list of other words that mean the same or similar things. So that's great for improving the overall quality of your writing. Some of the words that we mentioned that are overused in writing are nice, good, bad, sad, happy, laugh, say or said, ran, walked, scared, ugly, looked. All of those are overused. We can find more creative and more precise language as well when we use that thesaurus. There are physical thesauruses, but and if you have one, great, pull it out and use it. But thesaurus.com works great. Also, ChatGPT can give you a lot of suggestions. And you can even give ChatGPT the full sentence or the full paragraph and have it specifically find words that fit in the context of the paragraph that you're talking about or the sentence that you're talking about. So that's an excellent tool for that as well. After you revise your manuscript, you're still not done because there's probably still a lot of errors in spelling and capitalization, punctuation, other things like that, and grammar usage. So that's where CUPS comes in. The C in CUPS stands for capitalization. Did you capitalize everything that should be capitalized? And this is very important as well for pagan culture, particularly, because there are some words that we capitalize just as part of our cultural identity that the secular world does not capitalize. Magic comes to mind as one of the most common ones. We might spell magic differently as well, with a K at the end instead of, or a CK at the end instead of a C. So be aware of the style that you want to use for the book, and then be consistent throughout. If you spell magic one way, don't spell it a different way in the next chapter. And if you capitalize it in one, don't have it lowercase in another chapter. So think about the specific words that you want to see capitalized. Some of the ones that come to mind for pagan culture besides magic are our higher self. Inner child is sometimes capitalized. Shadow work, I've seen that one capitalized as well. So think about the list of words that are common to your topic that may not be capitalized in a secular book, but would probably be capitalized in a pagan book. After capitalization comes usage, and usage means grammar specifically. Are you using the correct verb tense here? Or have you do you have a whole string of a sentence here that just does not make sense because it has too complicated verbiage, or you're using the past tense when you meant to talk about it in the present tense. Check for those things. Make sure it's continuous throughout, and it stays the same throughout. If you're talking about something in the past and you started talking about that in the past tense, keep it in the past tense. Don't switch suddenly to present tense. Let's also talk about proofreading. So this is different from editing. When we're proofreading, we're not just checking to make we're also checking to make sure that we've done all the things in arms and cups. We want to read it through one more time, a third time at least. And we're looking for anything we missed from the first 2 times that we ran through. plus how the page is formatted. So this means checking to see if your page size is correct. If you're printing, an 8.5 by 11, then check to make sure your paper size is that. But if you're printing a 5 by 7 or smaller, then check to make sure it's the correct size for that paper. Whatever size you want your book to be is what you should be switching the page to, and then checking to make sure that what we call there aren't any widows or orphans on the page. What this means is that there is like a piece of text that's hanging off onto another page, and it either needs to be moved back to the previous page, or the whole paragraph from the bottom of the previous page needs to be moved to the new page so that it's not left dangling there all alone. So check for those things too as you're going through. At this point, you can also start putting in your table of contents. Many of the common word processing programs that we use have a built-in table of contents creator, but it only works if you have chosen to put a heading style on your headings for your chapters, and in some cases your subtopics under those chapters. So figure out which ones you want to be seen on your table of contents page, and then go through and make sure all of those headings are correctly labeled as a heading or as a subheading. And there are several different levels of headings. You can have title and then heading 1 through 4, and then there are various paragraphs and then normal text. So check to make sure that that is completely uniform throughout. That's another thing you want to look at while you're proofreading. You'll also want to check to make sure nothing is running over. None of your images are like half off the page or overlapping on text or things like that. That's pretty much what we look for when we're proofreading. There is a checklist in the chapter on proofreading so that you can go through item by item, and it's a professional checklist of everything that needs to be checked before you are finished. We also talk about in the publishing section how to get a book cover made for your book. So that's the next chapter. You can either hire an artist to do that, or if you're an artist yourself, you can use your own art and use a program like Photoshop, or I've even made them on Desktop Publisher before, to create a cover for your book. And then it also walks you through how to get set up for both print publishing and different options for that, including print on demand, as well as digital publishing. And how to set up the book cover for each style, whether it's print or digital. Now, after your book is ready to be published or is published, there will need to be some more sales and marketing, so we threw that in here. And then we've had a couple of extra parts here. It seems like, oh, you're finished with your book, but some people may have some difficulties with getting through a certain section of the book. So we've added in a special frequently asked questions section in lesson 12 called Help, I'm Stuck. And it gives all the list of problems that a writer might run into while they're writing. Maybe they're just not very good at English grammar, and you need help with that. We give a bunch of suggestions for how to resolve that issue. Or if you have writer's block, we give you a ton of tips for how to get through writer's block and push on into your next chapter. So make sure you're taking a look at lesson 12 if at any point you're just unable to move on without some assistance. And then lesson 13 is entitled Not Your Last Word, because not only do we teach you how to write your first book through this book, but we also set you up so that you're ready to write your next book using the material from this book. So we'll show you how to cross-promote in your future books, your older books, and how to use older books as teasers for newer books. At some point, you might have 5, 6, 7, half a dozen books published, and you can use those other books that you've published to help promote your newer books. We've also included a glossary at the end for all the terms that we use that are professional publishing jargon, and appendices with all the checklists and all the graphic organizers, organized by how you'll use them or when you'll use them, and they're blank. And also in the appendix is a link to the digital versions of those. So now let's jump into our meditation for today. So if you're listening in and you want to follow along with this, maybe you're thinking about writing a book, but you don't know what to write. This meditation will help you to narrow that down by setting the intent for your brain to focus on brainstorming when you do the physical part after the meditation. We do recommend reading through the meditation before you begin, so that way you can visualize it as you're going through, if you don't have someone to read it to you. For today, I'm going to read it to you. Let's put on some ambient music here to help with that. And I'll just put it pretty low here, so we'll get ready for our meditation. This meditation is called Waiting for Lightning to Strike, the brainstorming meditation. So wherever you're at right now, find a comfortable place to sit, stand, or lie down, whichever is most comfortable for you, and close your eyes. Breathe deeply in and out, in and out, in and out. Continue breathing slowly in, slowly out as you meditate. Release all tension in your body. Now picture yourself standing in a field of flowers on a sunny summer day with just a few puffs of white clouds like marshmallows floating on a light breeze. A tree is on a hill to your left, a big red barn to your right. Take a deep breath, slowly in, slowly out. You can smell the scent of the flowers wafting up around you, the cool, gentle breeze swirling around. Suddenly, the wind picks up. You notice a subtle drop in temperature, a tension in the air, and the light shifts as a dark cloud begins to cover the bright summer sky. The air is prickly with humidity, and water droplets from the suddenly saturated air condense on your skin. The dark cloud grows larger and darker, and you see small sparks of lightning rolling inside, quicksilver beams of pure energy bouncing along the droplets forming the cloud. A low rumble of thunder quickly follows. Energy continues to build in the cloud of thunder and darkness. The rumbles grow successively louder and louder. Finally, the tension breaks as a bolt of lightning shoots out from the cloud, striking the nearby tree on the hill and setting it ablaze. You feel something heavy in your hand. You look down and see a thin metal rod tapering into a gently curved point at one end. The base of the rod unfolds into a tripod with a grounding rod connecting the base. With all your might, you shove the lightning rod's grounding rod into the soft, freshly plowed topsoil of the field, then take cover in the barn. With all your might, you shove it down and run towards the barn. As the tension and sparks again build in the dark thundercloud, the rumbling grows and grows and grows once more. With a great and terrible clap, a giant bolt of lightning bursts forth. This time, instead of striking the smoldering tree, slowly dying out as drops of rain began to plop, plop down on the few remaining golden flickers of flame. The bolt slams right into the lightning rod, travels, accompanied by a loud hissing sound, down the pole and into the ground, where it dissipates harmlessly without further damage to the scenic environment. Almost as suddenly as it appeared, the short summer storm lets out a torrent of raindrops in a flood for a moment or two, then dies down as the dark, almost black cloud fades to a soft, patchy gray before dissipating into the blue, sunlit sky. You return outside and wait for the rod to cool down, still smelling the singe of the strike in your nostrils. As you wait, you breathe in the recently electrified air, tasting a bitter acridness in the back of your throat. You have successfully captured a lightning bolt and returned the energy harmlessly to Mother Earth. Breathe deeply a few more times as you come back to reality, back into your body, feeling the tingling of the lightning, tiny pricks of white-hot energy now ready for your use. When you're ready, open your eyes and ground and release in whatever manner you wish. And so concludes our meditation for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that your meditation will lead to a powerful list of ideas, and that each one of those ideas will become a book that you write. Until next time, this is Krys Copeland with Speak Your Own Book.